Today we're talking Arizona with someone who I've known for a very long time, José Patiño, who is the Vice President of Education and External Affairs at Aliento. José, how are you?
I'm well. Thank you for asking. And yeah, Mario, time flies. It was 10 years ago, and now look at us here.
And one of the reasons that America's Voice has really been wanting to focus on local wins is because we know that there's been challenges at the federal level at getting affirmative wins, at getting legalization for the undocumented, which continues to be the North Star for so many of us. But this effort is really focused on folks empowering people within their states, within their cities to get things done. And today we're talking Prop 308. Before we get into Prop 308, though, would love to kind of get a sense of your own background, your history of organizing in Arizona, and then we can kind of start talking about that ballot initiative.
Yeah, I'm originally from Mexico. I came into the country when I was 6 years old. I grew up in West Phoenix. Grew up undocumented, currently an active DACA recipient. My family had been migrating to the U.S. since the 1950s, 1960s. My grandparents were braceros. So they came and worked in the fields during the season. Then we'll go back to Mexico and live. And my dad was a farm worker as well. He did that. And then it wasn't until the 90s when we came and we settled here in the Phoenix area and grew up undocumented. Arizona in early 90s, it didn't mean much different. It wasn't until the 2000s where we started to see more on the news and started to be impacted. And as you get older with undocumented, experience once you start to get the age of a driver's license and you're like, oh, you're not eligible to be able to work, and you're like, oh, you can't work. For me, what really impacted me was in 2006 when Prop 300 passed. At the time, I was a high school senior. I was going to be the first one in my family to go to college. I had been awarded scholarships based on my grades. I did really well in school academically, and when Prop 300 passed, we were told that we're no longer eligible for in-state tuition or for scholarships. My mom had got really excited because we got an acceptance letters for all the three universities, and they were full rides. And then when we got the letter, when the law changed, saying that you were still accepted, but now you have to pay 3 times as much, you're not eligible for these scholarships, she started to cry, and I just got into my mind that I was gonna go to college. So at that time, it wasn't just about me anymore; it was about my mom and my family. And then I just tried to figure it out. I looked up all these scholarships that I could find for MALDEF at that time and Immigrants Rising, and couldn't find many that were eligible for here in Arizona. A lot of them were for California, and it was just challenging, just running around. And then that's when I started to get it. That's when I got involved. We marched from the state fairgrounds in 2007 to the Capitol asking for in-state tuition. And I thought, hey, we march. I see thousands of people here. I see it on the news. My teacher supported. I don't know anybody who supports it. We're going to be able to win. And it wasn't the case. But thankfully, because of the work that we have done, but other people in the community, I was able to find a private scholarship where I was able to complete my studies. I studied mechanical engineering in my undergrad, got involved deeper into the DREAM Act fight because I heard about the DREAM Act and met a lot of individuals nationally, met people from United with Dream, Dream activists, other groups, traveled to DC, advocated. And then a few years later, I met you. But ever since then, we were trying to win in-state tuition. And the first time I went to the Capitol to meet with lawmakers was in 2011. In the midst of SB 1070, it seemed impossible to think that we're going to win in-state tuition. I met with then Senator Steve Gallardo, and he was like, "Yeah, you can get this. You can get it. I believe in you." And he got us all pumped up. It wasn't until we started to meet with more individuals that it became more like, "Oh, it's going to be hard." But I also I met with Representative Katie Hobbs, which now our governor of Arizona. And that was 12 years ago. And you would have told me then that Katie Hobbs would have been governor 12 years later. I would have not believed you. So things change in Arizona, changed even when we were at our lowest and our darkest, and just deportations and just fear, our pile. It seemed everywhere was against us. We have now celebrating this win, this proposition, and very proud to be here and very lucky because so many people have done so much work throughout the years for us to be here.
Yeah, no, that's incredible. And thank you for that and sharing a bit of your own personal story and why this Prop 308, providing those opportunities that I know for many young immigrants didn't exist back when y'all were growing up. Going back to Arizona, SB 1070 was not that long ago. It's a little bit wild to think about how far y'all have come in Arizona, that you went from SB 1070, one of the most anti-immigrant laws in the country at that time, and maybe still even now, to now having an energized, young, mobilized electorate that has really changed the makeup of the state politically and electorally. What was it that led to 2022 just being a good year for the ballot initiative to get tuition equity passed in Arizona? And can you explain in detail what Prop 308 actually does?
In April 23rd, 2010, that's when AB 1070 was signed into law by Governor John Brewer. I think it was 11 or 2 p.m. Arizona time. And I just, for months and months, you just had conversations with family, with friends. We're like, we have to leave the state or we have to leave the country. People coming up with family plans. What would happen if the parents would not come home, and parents who are undocumented signing releases to family members who are citizens here, like, if I don't come home, you're going to take care of my kid, or if I get deported, here's access to my bank accounts. I remember we were doing the same thing, and it was just, I think, such a fear and frustration and anger and pain that instead of like letting that keep us down, because we were down for a while, it just energized us that we were not going to take it anymore, that this was our home, that we had built those roads. Literally, some of us have built those roads and those houses. I worked in construction at the time, so I can say I built those houses. And we had make sure that the state recovered. We were in a deep recession. The whole country was in a recession, but Arizona was a deep recession. And we have built out of that. But we also got so many young people, so many people who are now engaged. And one of the things that older people would tell me when they would see me and I would be so agitated, I'm like, we need to win. They're like, look at the crowd. You see all those little kids who are 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years, all those brown faces that are marching. 10 years from now, 9 years from now, they're going to become older and they're going to be able to help you change state. And that's what we saw. We saw that those individuals that went through that experience, because you can never take that away from them. You can never take that away, that at 8 or 19 years old, your mom tells you, you're going to be the man, the woman of the household. That if I get deported, if I don't come home, you're going to take care of your little kids. You just don't forget that as a little kid.
Sure.
And they're just passionate, and they just need direction. So that's what basically that was my role. How do I find direction? Use the knowledge, hopefully the gray hairs that I have gotten, to make sure to be able to guide our young people. And we started a campaign in 2018. When the Supreme Court of Arizona decided that recipients were no longer eligible for in-state tuition. We launched it. A lot of people, specifically older folks, laughed at us. They're like, what are you thinking about? This is Arizona. You have no chance. Some people were like, we'll support you, but again, you don't think we can do it. And we just, irrationally, to be honest with you, we had that belief that we can do it. And I said, like, I don't know how, but we're going to get it done. And it took several years. It took 2018, we introduced a bill, never got a hearing. 2019, we introduced a bill, passed in the Senate, died in the House. 2020, COVID happened. We introduced a bill, but COVID happened. And it wasn't until 2021 that we were to build a coalition with business leaders, grassroots, faith, and also impact the community to be able to get it through. And it took all of us to get there. So many people that I could probably just keep saying all their names. But it was just such an important victory for our community. And the reason that we needed to go to the ballot was that Arizona still is the only state that has a border protective law that gives in-state tuition to undocumented students. So in 2006, what happened is that the legislature was Republican, the governor was a Democrat. The Republicans kept passing anti-immigrant bills. The Republican who was a Democrat keep vetoing them. So therefore, they sent those bills to the ballot, and some of them passed and some of them failed. And that's the reason that we had to go to the ballot. We couldn't go just the legislature and get a 51 majority. We needed to go to the ballot. And it took so many people to knock on doors, the grassroots, the One Arizona group, the One Arizona Wins. We had a lot of the faith community, the interfaith networks. We had the chambers supporting us, the universities, the community colleges. But we also had all the MAGA far right individuals coming out against us and pouring money. And so we knew it was going to be a challenge. But what Prop 3A would do is if you lived in the state of Arizona for at least 2 years and have graduated from Arizona high school or equivalent, you'll be eligible for in-state tuition and access to scholarships if you are undocumented or you're a DACA recipient. There's certain individuals who might be eligible, specifically those who have non-immigrant visas. The reasons that's part of the place is because if they were to, our understanding is if they were to establish residency, their visa could potentially be in jeopardy, and we didn't want to put them in that case.
Mm, okay, that's interesting. And my next question kind of goes off of what you were getting to in terms of the types of partnerships that y'all had to build to get something like this done. Because one thing that's different in Arizona with the ballot initiative that's different from Minnesota is that they passed it through their legislature. So they had to get buy-in from elected officials, which y'all did too to get support for it, but you had to get the voters to support this ballot initiative. And what kind of partnerships, what kind of messaging do you feel like resonated with audiences that maybe those of us who work on immigration would have thought, oh, well, maybe we shouldn't reach out to those people because they're not going to support us. But in reality, support for immigrant policies, pro-immigrant policies is pretty high. It's just a matter of reaching out to those individuals. So what kind of partnerships did y'all have to build to make sure you reached a good swath of voters to make sure that it passed?
We did both. We got it. We passed it at the legislature to refer it to the ballot. We find enough money to be able to collect the signatures, and a lot of our folks are undocumented or DACA recipients, so legally they can't. So we had to do both. We had to get on the ballot, and the way we did it was to the legislature. So we got Republicans to sponsor it, and with Democrats working together and pass it. And then with voters, so it was the same. It was the same coalition. We learned from the first mistake. The first time that we tried it, it was just us, the grassroots, the pro-immigrants, the ones who say like you all deserve to be here to stay, and we couldn't get a hearing. So the second time we came back, we partnered with the business community, and we could get a sponsor, and a Republican sponsor, and we could pass it in the Senate, but that wasn't enough. We needed to get the faith community. It wasn't until and then in 2020, COVID happened, but in 2021, we got the faith community, we got business leaders. We still had the community, the grassroots, and that was the trifecta. With the business community, they were like, well, we're supporting because more education means higher earnings means more taxes, better economy. So that was the argument with them. So we had to understand how to navigate those dynamics. With the faith community, it was all about what is the moral just thing to do. Education, everybody deserves an education. This is what all the people, all our gods or different people, the deities that we follow, this is what they would want. And with the grassroots, it's like we had to convince them that this was the right strategy, that, hey, like this business community who typically come out against certain bills, it's okay. They're doing this because of this. And then what we also did is also what is very strategic that I think that we did is we went to the far right individuals, to the MAGA Republicans, and we built relationships through years. So what we wanted for them to do is silence their voices. We were never gonna convince them, but what we wanted is if you're gonna make a big show on the floor, if you're gonna do these ads, make sure that it's not 30 of them on the floor yelling. Make sure if it's 5 or 10, because they look like a minority and it doesn't look well. So we were able to do that after years and years of work. For example, I don't how many trips I made to Fannin Hills. Fannin Hills is the area where George Pyle lives, and that's very conservative. To meet with those individuals, to those lawmakers in their constituency, for them to meet us, to meet our students. We also went to rural Arizona, up in where Wendy Rogers is. I don't know if you know Arizona, but Wendy Rogers is one of the most extreme folks. So we went to her district and talked to her folks, and all of them were misinformed. They didn't ultimately support us, but they were like, okay, I understand where you're coming from. I disagree, but I understand. Same thing went to Yuma. Again, it was testy. The same thing was that it was like, how do we make sure that if we might never get their votes, but we get them to they understand where we're coming from, and it doesn't become a big fight. And what happened is that then you had a couple of people who were going to be anti and coming against us, and we minimized them as much as possible.
No, that's incredible. And it really does require a coalition, and it requires deep canvassing, and it requires having tough conversations. And we were talking again before we began recording about tuition equity now, and there's 23 states, including Washington, D.C., that offer tuition equity for undocumented folks. And here in Texas, we're very proud to have been the first state to offer in-state tuition to undocumented folks. So I know it's not been great times here in Texas recently over a couple of legislative sessions, but we know that we do have a history of being pro-immigrant that we're trying to get back to. But how can you describe how wins like this and Prop 308 benefit all of Arizona, not obviously just those who are impacted, like undocumented people who can now get in-state tuition, but how does this benefit all of the state?
This is the case, right? Is in Arizona a bachelor's degree and return of investment is over $660,000. So that's how much it's worth for a person. And think of an individual, as well as somebody with a bachelor's degree pays more in taxes, over $380,000 in local, state, and federal taxes over the lifeline. So that's the economic aspect of it. The societal aspect is that we have more educated individuals. Our society, our technology is changing. The futures that are going to be present 10 years from now probably don't exist now. That technology doesn't exist. So how do we move forward into that and make sure that we have the people who are eager to learn, who have the desire, and who have the ability to be able to get there? And when we put a out-of-state tuition, which is 3 times as much, and no access to scholarships, and you already have limitations of where jobs can you get, it's really difficult for us to actually be there. So for us, we see it, this is opening the doors for people to be able to swim into a new path. One of our Republican lawmakers who supported us the most, he's like, I believe in this legislation because one of you may be the person who ends up curing cancer. One of you may be the person who solves our transportation issues. And then he's like, one of you may be the person who solves our water issues in Arizona. We just don't know. And so we invest in these individuals. Again, a lot of it is unknown, but we know that if we allow them to be able to pursue their dreams, good things are going to happen.
That's incredible. Thank you for that. And just a couple more questions.
Yeah.
One of the reasons that we're doing this series is because we know that the morale right now among the immigrant community, immigrant rights activists, it can be low given the absence of federal legislation. What message do you have for folks in states who might be struggling, coming from SB 1070 to now where you all are? What kind of message of hope can you give other states?
My hope lies in a couple of things. My hope lies in my family, lies in my community, but lies in myself. And if I look in the mirror and if I believe in myself, believe in what I can do, then my hope never vanishes. I have learned not to put hope in elected officials. You just don't know what's going to happen, and it's always difficult not to put hope in other individuals. But if you have hope in yourself and in the community, we've seen people marches, we've seen people do so many things. They want to be able to go out and fight for things. And right now it's very challenging because you talked about the federal environment. But locally, there could be things could happen. It's gonna take time though. It's not gonna happen overnight. Somebody who's impatient, I had to learn that the hard way. I'm very impatient. But understand that somebody has to start. And I'll be the first to tell you, I didn't think I would have been in the position of leadership because I was like, I don't think this person knows what he's doing. He just wants to go and figure things out. And sometimes we're all of us looking for a leader and for somebody else to come in and help us. And then we just have to look in the mirror. And we're the leaders, we're the wise, we have the knowledge, we have to have the hope, and for us to carry forward. It's hard, but sometimes we just have to look ourselves and take that on.
Yeah, we need that here in Texas, brother. Let me tell you, things are tough here, but I know that we have a ton of people on the ground who want to fight for a better state. So we really look at states like Arizona and Minnesota and others who are doing really tough work to get really incredible wins. And now about the Prop 308 itself.
Yes.
Now it's been implemented in December of 2022, so folks can have already started benefiting from it. But how can folks actually sign up, or how do you go about knowing whether or not you qualify? And what's next for Aliento?
Yes. So as you mentioned, it's been law. There's the issue is going to be how do we get the information from like the university presidents to the people, financial aid officers, to the applicants, to the students. And between those steps, some of the information gets lost. So we're supporting the making sure that the financial officers, the counselors have accurate information, because there's still a lot of folks who are saying, "Oh, you only if you're DACA, you're eligible for this." And we're like, "No, it's for all undocumented folks." And they're like, "Oh, you have to need to have a state ID." I'm like, "Undocumented people don't have state ID. They can do their passport, school ID, or matricula, the
Mm.
consular ID." So it's doing a lot of that education, and sometimes it feels frustration to me because I'm like, this is part of your job, but hey, like if it's not happening, somebody has to do it. And that might be my job now. So we're focusing on that implementation, making sure we get more students into college. And then talking with other organizations, it's other states nationwide have a similar issue. It's like, how do we get more of our students enrolled who are undocumented? So that's it makes me feel not too bad about Arizona, because I was like, wow, we're messing up, but it seems like it's nationwide. And for Arizona, we have a couple of things that we're focusing on. We have 5 priorities this legislative cycle. One of them was driver's license for all, again, inspired by Minnesota, but other states. So we worked with a couple of Democrats to get the bill introduced. We were not able to get a hearing, but it's the first step. So we met with all the Democrats, which is 44. And then we met with half of the Republicans. And we're still meeting with the Republicans to educate them on this issue potentially. What would it take for them to be supportive? We're going to be focusing on that again. That might be 2, 3, 4 year campaign, but we're going to work on that, making sure that we get law enforcement to support us, make sure that we keep the faith community that's so key, and make sure that we work with the business community. So yeah, so we're doing a lot of outreach this summer. We have a meeting next week with a couple of Republicans. Hopefully if they say no, give me a couple of reasons why, and then try to figure out if we can find answers to those things. But we're gonna keep going. One of the things that when we met in 2013 that I think a lesson that I learned was that we had a lot of energy, a lot of motivation, a lot of momentum after the DACA win, after the election. And sadly, there's always gonna be walls, right? Just when you're thinking you're doing the best, life hits you, and then you're like, oh.
Yeah, I know it.
And we don't want that to happen. So for me, it's like we have to take the baton and keep running and keep fighting for more, because we have an opportunity now where we have the attention of the voters, because the ballot was there. Every border side, they voted yes, no, or they left it blank. We were able to get the media educated on it, while the legislatures as well, the community. So for us, it's like we got to keep going.
The work never stops, Jose. The work never stops. I want to thank you so much for your time. And if you have any final messages that you'd like to get out.
No, the only thing is for folks who are in other states, difficult states, like I know I reached out to people in Indiana, a little bit in Georgia, North Carolina, South Carolina, even in Missouri, is that it's gonna be tough. It's tough work. You have to talk to individuals because sometimes they don't see you as human or that you belong here. But again, is how do you center yourself and your belief? And at the end of the day, you're on the right side of history. It's just about doing that work and also finding a support system, because you're gonna get beaten down, you're gonna get hit. So how do you make sure that you have other people around you, so therefore it's not you are the only one taking all the hits all the time? And always make sure to drink water and coffee.
And a little bit of coffee, yes. And
Yeah.
great advice, great advice. José Patiño, Vice President of Education and External Affairs at Aliento. Just want to thank you so much for your time and all of the incredible work that y'all are leading in Arizona. And we'll be in touch and can't wait to see what's next, man.
Thank you.